Morning, members of SEIU 888. Thank you to President Tom McKeever and the hardworking team that makes events like this possible. And thank you to all the members for everything you do for our state throughout the year, both as those working in the public sector and as advocates for justice and equity. You don't just keep Massachusetts moving, you make us stronger. I know you represent nearly 8,000 municipal, state, early ed, and higher ed workers. 888 has always been on the front lines of the fight for fair wages, safe working conditions, and the dignity and respect that every worker deserves. I'll always be a partner in that work. And that's why we created the state's first ever Labor Advisory Council, and also why we created the new position of Labor Advisor in the governor's office. We've appointed dozens of union leaders to our boards and commissions, and together we've delivered on promises that will make life more affordable for working families. Things like free community college, free school breakfast and lunch, and the most generous universal child tax credit in the entire country. We're at an inflection point in our nation's history. You know that. We know that. It's really important that we stand together on the side of working people, that we protect the right to organize and work together to make sure that every worker is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. 2 years ago, I stood with SEIU as we made history together in this state. Now we have another opportunity to make history once again and lead our nation forward. So let's work together and get after it. Thank you again for your dedication to the people of our state, and enjoy the rest of the convention.
And also why we created the new position of Labor Advisor in the governor's office. We've appointed dozens of union leaders to our boards and commissions, and together we've delivered on promises that will make life more affordable for working families. Things like free community college, free school breakfast and lunch, and the most generous universal child tax credit in the entire country. We're at an inflection point in our nation's history. You know that. We know that. It's really important that we stand together on the side of working people, that we protect the right to organize and work together to make sure that every worker is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. 2 years ago, I stood with SEIU as we made history together in this state. Now we have another opportunity to make history once again and lead our nation forward. So let's work together and get after it. Thank you again for your dedication to the people of our state, and enjoy the rest of the convention.
Good morning, everyone. I'm your president, Tom McKeever. Thank you so much for making every effort to come out on a Saturday for the opening of our 2024 SEIU Local 888 convention. At this time, if everybody can rise and prepare for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So just some housekeeping stuff. We have a code of conduct. SEIU Local 888 is committed to providing an environment free from discrimination and harassment. We ask all meeting participants to embrace our values in equity and equality and conduct themselves at the event consistent with those values. Should you have any concerns, Secretary Treasurer Marcellus Parker and Recording Secretary Lisa Raines are the points of contact for anyone who feels you are experiencing discrimination, harassment, or otherwise unacceptable behavior. Thank you for your attention to this code of conduct, and our convention is open. And thank you all for again for attending this morning. So just to give you a snapshot on the state of affairs and the to bring you into the fold on everything that we're working on over the next 3 years. my fellow members at SEIU Local 88, it's an honor and privilege to stand before you once again as we move forward, onward and upward into another transformative 3-year term. Together we have achieved great things, and today I'm filled with pride and hope and excitement about the future we are shaping together. As we gather at the state convention, it's important to reflect on where we've been and where we're heading. Over the past few years, we've secured big wins, as you heard our Governor Maura Healey, unprecedented contracts, and we've set the stage for even greater progress. We've won wage increases that reflect the reality of inflation, ensuring that all of our members can thrive in these challenging economic times. We've classified job titles, advanced discussions on class and compensation, and campaigned tirelessly to restore the dignity and respect for every worker, and this is what they deserve. We've lobbied for legislation regarding pension reform and the advancements of collective bargaining rights for workers. But our work is far from over. Today, I ask each of you to recommit to fight for equity, justice, and fairness in the workplace. Your strength, your unity, and your collective power are what we have made accomplishments, or what makes accomplishments possible. And it is the same power that will drive us forward into the future. Our next 3 years, we have a clear vision and roadmap to success. We will continue to fight for sector affiliation, universal contract language, strong enforceable health and safety protections. We will press for comprehensive health and dental benefits, prepaid legal plans, and ensure that our employers are accountable for unsafe working conditions. Our priority is and always will be you, the members of SEIU, and your right to fair, safe, and dignified workplaces. We've already seen the results of our efforts, and our new member orientation programs are making sure no one slips through the cracks. We're aggressively working to make sure members understand the benefits of belonging to our local, and working to ensure that our pay, that they pay, and we have the opportunity to collect dues. These efforts bringing in revenue fuels our representation efforts. Since the summer, I'm happy to say, we've already seen an uptick related to chasing down missing dues, and this will always be a priority of our local. This is the power of solidarity. We have made tremendous progress in securing first contracts in many of our members across various sectors, with several significant victories already in place. On this list, settled contracts, we are proud to count Harvard Paris, Community Catalyst is in the house, and Boston University Early Childhood Care Centers. We have some employees here today and members, and we welcome them into our family. Sharon Town Hall, Mattapoisett Town Hall, just to name a few. One standout example certainly is the comprehensive collective bargaining agreement we reached with BUCC. This contract reflects the hard work and dedication of our bargaining committee, resulting in major achievements like a salary floor with no less than $60,000, and annually significant yearly wage increases through 2027, retention bonuses up to $7,200, and educational attainment bonuses. We also secure vital improvements in benefits, including health insurance, retirement plans, and compensatory time for over 40 hours of work per week. These are transformative wins for our members. Meanwhile, we continue to push forward on first contracts that remain unsettled, including Mass Gaming Commission, Cambridge Friends School, the Ratcliffe Early Childhood Care Centers, Coalition for a Better Acre in Lowell, Cambridge Food Service Workers, and Millbury Parish. We are so excited to be close to filling 220 clerical and technical professionals and staff at Brandeis University. Additionally, add-on elections, we've expanded by 15 new members across 2 departments at Emerson College. And I believe we have some representatives here today. These successes demonstrate the power of collective bargaining and our commitment to achieving fair contracts for all our members. Our journey is ongoing, but the momentum is undeniable, and we are ready to keep fighting for the rights and dignity of workers across the sector. Earlier this year, our local was presented with exciting new jurisdictional opportunities by the International Executive Board, which have the potential to open up even greater pathways for external organizing. 2 key areas of focus are early childhood educators employed at higher educational facilities and nonprofit community-based organizations. We have already started to make progress in these sectors with organizing efforts underway at BU, Harvard Early Child Care Centers, and pass towards a first contract with Coalition for a Better Acre. And that's located in Lowell. Our local has identified hundreds, if not thousands, of unorganized workers in these areas, and we are eager to bring them into SEIU Local 888 family as full dues paying members. The growth potential is enormous, and we are planning to expand our local by creating divisions that represent public sector workers. Higher education employees, early child care facilities, and higher educational institutions and community-based nonprofits across 6 largest cities in the Commonwealth. We have tons of work at our disposal. If successful, this approach will not only exponentially increase our membership, but also generate additional revenue to strengthen our union. With this growth, we can expand our local 888 staff by division, ensuring that every member receives the quality service and representation they deserve. Together, we are building stronger, more vibrant SEIU Local 888 folks into the future. Over the past 6 months, SEIU Local 888 has been hard at working developing groundbreaking training funds, and this is territories that we've never experienced. And I can tell you, that the grant process was completely cumbersome, but we're almost there. This is uncharted territory for our local, but through the determination and collaboration, we are making it a reality. I want to extend our heartfelt appreciation to Vicki McCauley and Neil O'Brien for their tireless efforts and expanding our initiative going forward, as well as a special thanks to Christine Fleming, an expert grant writer from Higher Communication, and her invaluable role in securing the necessary resources. We partnered with Mass Bay Community College and Holyoke Chelsea Veterans Homes to create pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs that will provide pathways for CNAs and LPNs, many of whom endured unimaginable challenges during the height of the pandemic. The apprenticeship framework supported by the Massachusetts Division of Apprenticeships and Standards will connect existing workers and new Americans to sustainable careers in healthcare while addressing workforce shortages and promoting diversity across the Commonwealth. This program represents our commitment to ensuring that SEIU Local 888 and its members have access to skills, trainings, and opportunities they deserve, while building a stronger, more inclusive workforce. We're not stopping here. This is just the beginning. As we continue to grow our training fund, we seek even more grant opportunities to expand job titles and ensure all members who invest in their training receive recognition and compensation they deserve. This is the future of SEIU Local 888, folks, a future built on inclusivity, opportunity, and growth. Our goals are ambitious, but they are achievable because we have something that no challenge can overcome. We have unity. Together, we grow stronger, we build partners, and we ensure that our members are respected well represented, and supported. In these next 3 years, we will continue to strengthen our local, expand our reach, and bring more workers into our union family. We've identified opportunities for exponential growth and membership, which means more revenue, more resources, and more power to negotiate contracts and benefits you deserve. Together, we will set new goals that will continue to uplift, benefit all of our, and will benefit all of our members. We remain committed to forging partnerships that truly make a difference. Working closely with leaders who understand the power of unions, stand with us in our fight for economic justice. They are partners in our shared mission to bring workers closer to a living wage, to secure pay equity and parity, and to ensure that every worker, regardless of gender, race, sexuality, or nationality, is treated with fairness and respect they deserve. This is the future we are building, and together we will continue to lead the charge for lasting change. And as we approach November elections, let us not forget, we have the power to shape our future. We will support the candidates who stand with labor, who fight for workers, who understand the value of what we do every single day. This is not about political party affiliation. This is about standing with those who stand with us. My brothers and sisters, this is the State of the Union, a union that is growing, thriving, and fighting for a better future for every single one of us. But we cannot rest. Our fight continues, and I'm asking each of you to stand with me, to stand with this union, and to keep pushing and challenging ourselves going forward. Together, we can build a stronger SEIU Local 888, and together we continue to fight for dignity, respect, fairness, and together we will win. And that is the State of the Union. Fantastic. Thank you. So, just staying consistent with the agenda, folks. In your packets, you will see a litany of pieces. That are informative for you. Not only two of the additional pieces in the packet are unprecedented wins, again, on behalf of the Commonwealth and our partnership with Governor Maura Healey, the HEROES Act. Please read up on that, and we've installed that in your packet, and certainly it's a benefit unlike anything we've seen, and it just gives veterans who served honorably the opportunity to buy back time that essentially goes to all of your good state and municipal time, and creates a pathway for retirement for the future. Secondly, the iLottery legislation. iLottery legislation is that's groundbreaking legislation, and honestly, through our partnerships with the AFL-CIO, we were able to endorse this legislation with all of our partners at AFL, and we pose it as a all-union approach because the iLottery legislation has so many impacts, for the Commonwealth. It'll grow. It's already a $5 billion industry, but now taking a pathway for online, it will grow exponentially, and that is more money allocated to the 351 cities and towns across the Commonwealth. I mean, that's for infrastructure, that's for teachers, that's for public safety, that's for you name it. But it's more money into their coffers and more money into municipalities' budget. So that was groundbreaking legislation, and we were only one of the few unions that had the opportunity to and we were successful in getting it across the finish line. As you know, that many of the stuff and legislation that we put forth, we constantly, consistently refile. We feel as though it's common sense legislation, and but the legislature it's definitely cumbersome to get, these pieces across through the legislature, but that is a fight we'll continue to keep. So, and then in addition, in your packets, we will be discussing a resolution on aiming high and for working families. And this resolution essentially is, so since 2003, we have not had the conversation on lifting the cap. So right now, the cap is $16, and this $16 impacts a third and less than half of our membership, our top tier earners that make above $61,000. We, as a local, were obligated to pay 1.6% to the international per member. So if you make above 61,000, we as a local are still obligated to pay that 1.6%. But we have calculated through an Excel spreadsheet that the folks making over 61,000, they do not pay the 1.6, although we are obligated. They'll pay 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So in the spirit of not going into a deficit and certainly addressing this, we are proposing through this resolution to raise the cap from $16 to $19. The folks that make less than 61,000, they pay 1.6%. There will be no additional deductions from their dues. Their dues structure will remain the same. It's the folks that make over 61,000 that it'll be slightly big, like it'll be, and certainly you can volley. Let's just read the dues resolution together. The dues structure is 1.6 of an employee's regular wage, not overtime, with a cap of $16 a week, has not changed in the history of Local 888. I could say it's since 2003. And recognizing what the federal government has identified the cost of living in the United States has risen dramatically since 2003. Acknowledging that union workers, including many states, municipal school, higher education, and others, have experienced steady annual COLA adjustments since 2003, while the locals' revenue has remained constant. The dues committee and the trustees of the executive board have examined, and we've been very transparent in all of that. And I thank you specifically to the e-board and the trustees for all your due diligence and certainly helping us in this, and through this pathway. So the fair salaries and benefits of the staff are covered, and the expenses such as enhanced chapter funds onto the next decade. So we will have the opportunity to vote. And you can periodically go to the voting booth and participate in the vote. And then at the end of this program, we'll certainly we'll count up the votes, and you'll know before you leave today whether it passed or not. But sticking with the agenda, I'd like to introduce Darlene Lumbos, and Darlene Lumbos is the president and principal officer of the Greater Boston Labor Council, and the first woman and person of color to be elected in this top leadership position, and that deserves a round of applause. The Greater Boston Labor Council represents over 100,000 union members and their families within 24 cities and towns in the region, and it has been a primary mission to build power for workers and progressive allies to advance our movement and social, economic, and racial justice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can help me, a warm SEIU welcome for Darlene Lumbo.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me today. There's like 2 mics. What's happening? I don't know. Okay. Again, my name is Darlene Lombos. I'm the president of the Greater Boston Labor Council, AFL-CIO. We represent about 100,000 union members and their families in the region, which includes all kinds of workers, firefighters, janitors, nurses, security guards, grocery store workers, and all the building trades unions. And of course, all of you, our union sisters and brothers and siblings at SEIU 888. You are all part of our union family, and families stick together, fights for each other, and takes care of one another. One of the main things that we do at the Labor Council is build solidarity between all our unions and our community partners. When you are fighting for a contract and need support, we're going to be there for you, for whatever it is and for however long it takes. We're going to show up, we're going to turn out, and we're going to even strategize with you to win all the things that you all deserve. Because when you win, we win, because your fight is our fight. And the labor movement is stronger when we stick together. We've got hotel workers right now in Boston on strike. And on Labor Day this year, we moved everything out in the streets in solidarity and made sure that over 750 people that usually come to our breakfast, sit down in the nice hotel, they didn't just not cross the picket line. We had them join the picket line. And that's what solidarity looks like, and that's what the Labor Council does. But that's not all that we do. We endorse candidates. We do labor walks to make sure that they get elected. And once they get elected, we make champions. And our agenda as a labor movement, whatever, take them on our issues and we make them our labor champions. It just doesn't come out of the square. Make sure that union leaders and their members have a chance to build relationships with electeds in their hometowns. The Labor Council also has a sister organization, nonprofit called Community Living. Enough about us at the Labor Day. Let's talk about you guys. SEIU 888 is one of our strongest affiliates, actually, at the Labor Council. And you are incredible. We are just so incredibly thankful for all the work that you do for our cities running and making sure that our residents get the vital services they need. We, as a labor movement, are in SEIU 888. It continues to grow and organize new workers in your union and always showing up for solidarity ask when we ask you to. So proud to have SEIU 888 as part of our union family, because right now we need your power. We need the power of your workers. We need the power of the public sector and private sector now to lead the change we want to see. No matter what happens in these elections coming up in November, we will need a strong labor movement to both defend what we already fought for and to proactively fight for the change we deserve. Which is why heading up the Greater Boston Labor Council at this time. 75% of new union members are under the age of 35, and they have a real important relationship with debt. And so they know what it means to actually challenge corporate greed in a different way. And there are more women and people of color in unions than before. And we're rooted And we have a different way of fighting for what we believe that matches what's happening. We're just not in our communities, we're in our places, and we're the same people. So the Labor Council, we just raised our per capita dues so that we can be financially effective to do more, win more. Our unions understand that investing in organizing is an investment in our people so that we can come together in a united voice, take collective action, and make real change happen. And all that organizing takes resources. What we need is in the labor movement. We need that power now more than ever in the November elections. We've still got anti-union judges and politicians. Millions of women from their health care benefits that we fought long and hard for. We've still got union judges and all over the country who want to make it for their rich corporations for more profits in their pocket. This is what I call that, you know? Union sisters, brother, take a stand. And we'd have to say, hell no, not on our watch. So like I said earlier, family sticks together, fights together, and wins together. And so we also chant, and you say power, union, union. When I say justice, you say now, justice, justice. When I say fight, you say win, fight, fight. And that's what we're going to do. And thank you so much for having me this morning.
That'll wake you up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Trahan. I wish I could be with you all in person for your member convention, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you by video. For those of you I haven't gotten the chance to meet yet, I'm the daughter of labor. My dad was an iron worker, Local 7. Thanks to him, I saw firsthand what's possible when workers come together, organize, and collectively bargain for the wages, benefits, and protections that they deserve. And I go to work every day in Congress to strengthen those rights for workers here in Massachusetts and across the country. I'm incredibly proud to represent so many members of Local 888. And I had the opportunity to see firsthand a tiny glimpse of what you all do when I visited Lowell Day Nursery last year to shadow Scott Lamond and other educators for the day. But I know your work doesn't stop there. Whether it's in our public schools, our cafeterias, 911 dispatching centers, or so many other industries, you all step up for our kids, our communities, and our Commonwealth as a whole. That's why I'll always step up for you. I'm proud to be a supporter of the Enhancing First Response Act, a key priority for Local 888. And I've consistently helped introduce and push for the PRO Act to protect labor rights from corporate attacks. But like each of you know, we need a team to get the job done. That's why with just 2 weeks left until Election Day, I'm on the road to help elect pro-labor candidates at every level of government. In fact, as we speak, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, working to defeat a corporate-backed Republican in one of the most competitive congressional races in the country. I'm doing that because we need people in power, in the White House, in the Capitol, and on Beacon Hill, who have our unions' backs the same way that you have ours. But we're at real risk of losing ground in this election. It's no secret that Donald Trump was one of the most anti-union presidents in decades. He stacked the NLRB with pro-corporation cronies and brags about breaking up strikes. And if he wins on Election Day, we know he plans to double down on his union-busting tactics. To make matters worse, there are a lot of people running for office who are following his lead. Candidates who are talking a big game about helping workers like you and like my dad, and who are doing so while meeting behind closed doors with some corporate executives who want to take away your right to form a union or advocate for the wages that you need to support your families. We can't afford to take the bait. You all know better than anyone. It's not what you say that matters, it's what you do. So when you head to the polls, please take a look at each candidate's record and encourage your brothers and sisters in local chapters across the country to do the same. With your support, we won't go back in this election. Thank you. With your support, we won't go back in this election. Thank you.
Folks, and thank you, Darlene, for presenting today. Darlene is experiencing, similar circumstances that we are, and as it relates to the resolution and raising the cap. Darlene is also in an uncomfortable situation where she is raising the per capita. But with that being said, our partnerships with Greater Boston Labor Council are so very, very important. And building a local 880 for the future, we rely on our union partners, and similarly, we bless the decision that Greater Boston Labor Council raised their per capita. We want to continue to participate with the Greater Boston Labor Council in a strong fashion. But thank you, Darlene, for presenting today. Without further ado, folks, we have Mayor of Somerville, Katyana Ballantyne, and Mayor Ballantyne has been a champion on behalf of labor and equity, utilizing driven data to change to ensure that inequalities are handled swiftly. When our contract at Somerville 911 was put before Somerville City Council, the mayor found it of such importance that she landed her voice at the hearing to advocate on behalf of the members and championed the changes to ensure fairness in pay and work for our members, who settled a contract that is completely unprecedented and long overdue. And we are so very excited to have Mayor Ballantyne with us today. If we can give her a warm welcome. Mayor, thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be here to take this opportunity to speak to you all. I want to thank Anthony, too, for inviting me. Thank you for your leadership in having me and all that you do. Truly appreciate it. Before I get started, I want to pause in recognition of the important work that every worker in this room does, and your commitment to public service. The work and the people who do daily work in our cities, in our schools, and local government are more than just the backbone of our communities. You are the key to our quality of life. You ensure the systems and the services we all take for granted are here in our communities every day, so that people can live their best lives. That's good lives. Too often it's taken for granted. So if we could just take a moment to applaud you, let's give you all a hand. It's okay if you clap for yourself and each other. As union members, every union agreement is important. I've been asked here today to speak about one of them, your recent E911 telecommunication police dispatch agreement. I'll note it's one of 5 agreements my administration has hammered out in collaboration with city workers over the past 2.5 years. We have established strong new contracts for custodians, our crossing guards, our fire alarm union, our firefighters and Local 76, all hardworking employees now doing critical work for the city at updated competitive wages and strong benefits. Recently, we also signed a new E911 contract. It was no run-of-the-mill standard increase. No, that contract not only broke new ground, it breaks the systems and it builds it back up better. And let me explain in very clear terms. Workers in Somerville, like across our nation, face many downward pressures on fair wages, benefits. That's not right for everyone. We need strong, fair agreements for all union members. And non-union workers may not know it, but I know you know this. These fair contracts historically have taken, again, your fair contracts historically have taken, again, to improve the conditions for all workers. Yes. And you know it, yes. And when our nation fights for fair wages, you are fighting for all of us. Weekends, 8-hour work days, you name it. It all grew out of the unions. And all workers owe a debt of gratitude for unions holding the line time and again through history. I want you to know I'm working too to do my part for all of our union employees. I also have a particular fight I'm determined to carry forward. When it comes to challenges for workers, persistent gender inequality is something we can no longer accept. National data shows time and again that women are underpaid for doing the same work. And it's important to note this is particularly true for women of color. Too many people are living paycheck to paycheck or in poverty, and the heads of those households are disproportionately women. And, you know, as a personal story, I can share with you that was my case growing up. If it wasn't for my mother, who was the breadwinner in the house, and then help from both of my grandmothers, I wouldn't have had, you know, at least the foundation to be where I am today, which is, you know, certainly working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, taking out loans, and the first and only one to go to college. It is our duty, and it is certainly my mission, to root out this inequality in Somerville wherever I find it. So when it comes to our E911 staff, I will not mince words here. For decades, our E911 workers have been almost exclusively women who are underpaid. For decades, these vital positions have been answering our emergency calls. They de-escalate us to pull us out needed information when we can't think straight. They deftly triage our calls to police, ambulance, and fire. They expertly dispatch help in crisis where seconds matter. And for decades, these professionals entrusted to carry out the protocols that can save lives have been paid less. They've been paid less for equal work when compared to other public safety professionals doing work both in Somerville and in the region. Each time their contract has been renegotiated and upped, that inequity has been carried forward in real time. Never called out, never corrected, over and over again. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am determined that on my watch, we will not perpetuate unequal pay for equal work. Somerville can and will do better. Our E911 contract is Somerville doing better. Our E911 contract is Somerville being a disruptor of the broken status quo. Our E911 contract is Somerville not just breaking ground, but breaking the system so we can build it back better. And let me tell you how we did this. People in Somerville, at least, hear me say often, I don't want equity to be a buzzword. And so this is 2024. What does that mean? The low-hanging fruit doesn't exist. It means you have to think about it and be really intentional. So when we went to the negotiating table, we were prepared with data and details from our wage compensation study that looked at all jobs citywide. That's hundreds of jobs that we wrote job descriptions for. We met at the table and we said, hey, do you want to write it or do you want us to write it? If we write it, you sign off on it, so we go through it. That's hundreds of jobs in the city, or job descriptions in the city. But this study gave us, we did the job descriptions and then we got a consultant. That's a lot of detailed work. For any of you who have been at the negotiating table, you know what that's like. So the study then gives us objective data and information first on what each position's duty actually are. You would be surprised how many job descriptions needed an update. Then the study tells us what kind of compensation this type of actual work is getting paid in Somerville, in similar jobs, and also in the region. We've taken some heat for it taking months to conduct this study, but let me tell you, this data will make a difference for our workers for years to come. And for E911, with this kind of data, it was easy to see that although fire alarm union workers do very similar work as our E911 workers, fire alarm has nonetheless had higher pay, better compensation structures for decades. It was hard to find an explanation for that. That was not directly or indirectly based on gender. The skills requirements are essentially the same. The work is essentially the same. Just who's doing the work is different. Fire alarm has been traditionally male-dominated unit. To be clear, we don't believe anyone over the years sat down and said, hey, let's pay the men more than the women for equal work. No, bias works more quietly than that. Bias works out of direct view. Bias has a way of just creeping into decisions and distorting what seems right in ways that we are not always aware of. Bias led to these highly skilled professionals being paid less for like work and being diminished by the title of call taker. Call taker. Think about it. It's easy to pay skilled professionals less without even reflecting upon it when you label their complex work as simply answering a phone. So when it came to the table, our goal was more than how do we update the contract to reflect today's cost of living and competitive pay. Our bar was how do we ensure we have a gender bias-free equal pay for equal work? And we did it. Our E911 contract doesn't just relatively increase compensation based on the last contract. It brings E911 workers' pay in line with like positions over at fire alarm in Somerville and in similar public safety roles across the region. It builds not only on cost of living adjustments, but higher starting salaries, higher step increases, and in some cases more than 9% and 22% higher than the last contract. We added differentials and stipends that mirror those in the fire alarm contract. And the contract introduces strong new benefits, including access to our family medical leave program coming soon, which will offer 8 weeks of pay for qualified leaves. The contract also increases vacation time, creates a unit-wide sick leave bank for the first time, and establishes wellness release time for preventative medical care or mental health appointments. I know you're all taking notes for your union negotiation. And finally, and most importantly, the contract also codifies a more appropriate job title. This contract delivers the job title your union is fighting to establish for all workers. They are no longer call takers. They are now emergency telecommunicators, a title that properly reflects their vital modern public safety responsibilities accurately. You are here because you have fight in you. You are willing to stand up for what is fair and just for workers like yourselves. So I ask you to ask yourselves if you see bias in your workplaces. We all know bias comes in many forms: gender, racial, age, class, and more. So I ask that as you speak up for all workers, that you also seek to take on long-standing inequities too. Of course, the work starts with the needed increases and improved working conditions and the stronger benefits needed for all. And goodness knows, there are national forces right now that would like to undo the worker protections and progress, who want workers fired if they dare to strike, who care about profits and not people who create them. So I understand our unions face headwinds and challenges. But if workers don't shine a light on unfairness that already exists between roles, you risk carrying it forward that unfairly each time you negotiate. Sure, everyone gets a raise, but if you start on an unequal balance, those inequities persist. But if you do name it, call it out, speak up, ultimately root out inequities and biases, uplifts all. Again, uplifting all is what our union workers do. As I said before, you do this daily as you serve your communities. And it's what you do by joining your unions, fighting for good working conditions, standing up for fair wages and benefits, making sure that good work is valued and fairly compensated in our state and in society. I am truly, truly honored and grateful to serve alongside the union members in my city and have deep respect for all of our union and union workers in the region. I am honored to be here with people who know that change is not simply something we dream of. It's the work we get done. So thank you again for inviting me here to speak and for the progress and work towards the progress we all value and pursue. Thank you. And just a slight digression, you know that the call takers, well, we've officially changed the name. And I also wanted to give to you and to the union local 888 this proclamation Would you like me to read it? Yeah, okay. So, emergency response dispatch, whereas emergency response dispatchers heretofore referred to in the city as E911 call takers and dispatchers are often the first contact our residents have in emergency services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, such dispatchers facilitate the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics for the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas advancements in technology and improvements in public safety response methods have fundamentally changed the role of emergency dispatchers. And whereas the recently negotiated collective bargaining agreement with the city's emergency dispatcher union recognizes the modern role and the current needs of these public safety employees. And whereas it is necessary, appropriate, and fitting that position titles accurately reflect the present roles and responsibilities of employees. And now, therefore, I, Katiana Ballantyne, Mayor of Somerville, do hereby proclaim all employees formerly known as E911 call takers and dispatchers will henceforth be recognized in all city documents, communication, and matters as emergency telecommunicators and police dispatchers. Okay.
Folks, I would like to say thank you to Mayor Ballantyne for being here today. She is a true champion on behalf of the constituents and residents and union members in Somerville. And it's an honor for us to partner with her and, you know, and all that you do. Thank you so very, very much for being here today.
Thank you. Yes. Let me do that.
Yeah, I'm a hugger. Thank you. So that was fantastic. Folks, just staying consistent with the agenda. We have an additional guest here today, Costas Lucas. And Costas Lucas is a dear friend of ours, and he is a local 888 member. He's a Democratic candidate for state representative of Mansfield, Norton, and Foxborough. Priorities include advocating for seniors, supporting schools, and backing housing options and initiatives. He's a member of Local 888 negotiating, and he's the team captain on behalf of us plowing ahead and taking a pathway for a first contract with Massachusetts Gaming Commission, where he's employed currently, and as a senior gaming agent. And let's give Costas a warm welcome. He's going to be the next representative of the 1st Bristol District, Costas Lucas.
Good afternoon to all my union brothers and sisters out there. As Tom said, my name is Costas Lucas, and I'm truly honored to be here before you guys today, both as a candidate for state representative, but more importantly, as a organizing member of Local 888. I've had the privilege to negotiate and to work alongside awesome members of Local 888 and leaders like Tom McKeever and Tony Landry and John Magner, who's outside guarding the ballot box. Today, I want to take a moment to talk about what being a union member means to me, and I'm sure what it means to all of us. It's not just about us as individual union members, but the broader community that we serve. Local 888 is a union with a powerful collective voice advocating for workers to ensure that we're all treated with dignity and respect, something that's important to all of us in all of our respective workplaces. As a member, I felt the strength and unity of our union at my workplace, where since having Local 888 come in, we feel supported and we feel protected, and we feel able to voice our concerns to our management team. The protections and the support that SEIU provides have been absolutely invaluable to me in my work, both at my workplace, but in my new pathway as a hopeful elected member of the legislature. I'm grateful for Tom McKeever and Tony Landry and Rachel Wiggins and so many other people here in this room for the support that you folks have given me in holding signs, knocking doors, making phone calls. And that really makes me feel like I'm part of this union and that we're all together and striving. Yes. Thank you, Tom. And that I know that no matter what challenges I face in my workplace or challenges I face in my campaign, that I have this huge family of union brothers and sisters that I can call on to help me, and that we can work together so that when I'm in the legislature, I can make sure that we're passing meaningful legislation to support and protect workers and protect our healthcare benefits and protect our fair wages. And this is what union membership is all about. It's about solidarity. It's about lifting each other up and ensuring that every worker is heard. Many of you have been supporting my campaign, and I'm so thankful for that. Together, we're showing that when we unite, we can achieve great things. The work being done at my workplace to negotiate our contract is the first in the history of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. We're one of the only state agencies that does not have a union. And we're seeking unprecedented benefits in healthcare, in wages, and basic decency at our workplace. And I know that all of you are doing the same in your workplaces. As I run for office, I carry the values of SEIU Local 888 with me. All of us work to serve the public in the communities that we're a part of. And that's something that's been crucial to me my entire life. And I know all of you strive to do the same thing. For some of us, it's not just about showing up to work and collecting a paycheck. It's about going and helping kids in childcare facilities, or helping the public as emergency dispatchers, or serving in different educational roles. I know that when we work together, we can create meaningful change where we will all thrive together. I'm committed to being a champion for our goals, the goals here of Local 888, once I'm elected and serving in the legislature, and advocating for all these different policies to uplift us, to allow public employees the right to strike, so that when they're at a stalemate at their negotiating table, they have leverage over their employers and they can negotiate for meaningful change. And ensuring that our voices aren't only heard, but that they're prioritized in the halls of government, up at Beacon Hill and in the legislature. We're going to continue this fight together. It's not just about getting elected. It's about holding other legislators accountable to make sure that we are the shining beacon in our country in terms of labor rights, that we're making sure that folks can go home at the end of the day and that they're not just surviving, but they're living, and they're able to enjoy basic fundamental rights and have their fair wages, fair benefits, and workers' protections. Thank you for the support and all of your hard work and your commitment to each other. That's what this is about, is being able to come together as a collective voice and to be able to sit at the negotiating table, or choose those to sit at the negotiating table for you, and know that they have your best interest at heart. Know that their goal is your goal, and that at the end of the day, all we want is to be able to have those wages, have those benefits, and feel like we're treated as decent human beings when we're at work. Thank you. As was said earlier, at the end of the day, when we come together and we talk to our elected officials as a union, as individuals, we can change the direction of policy. And that's what's being done all across the Commonwealth over the next 17 days as we get closer to election. Today starts early voting. People are dropping their ballots in the ballot boxes at their town halls or their city halls, and already moving that meter forward. Massachusetts is great when it comes to protecting the rights of working people, but there's so much more we can do. Costs an average of $20,000 a year to send kids to daycare, one kid to daycare. Could you imagine spending $20,000 a year to send one kid to daycare? I'm sure some of you can, because you probably do. Tony, we've talked about that. So making childcare available to everyone is absolutely crucial so that folks don't have to choose between sending their kids to get high quality education or being able to have a job. Because if you're not making enough money to send those kids to childcare, you're staying home from work and you're watching those kids, or you're passing it off to a family member to watch those kids. And it's very important that they're getting the education, but it's also important that you have enough money to pay to have a roof over your head and pay to be able to put food on the table. So that is my number one priority if I'm elected. And as I said, all of you here at Local 88 have been so instrumental. And when I sit down at my negotiating table every month that we have our negotiating meeting, I think of what awesome work that I'm doing on behalf of the folks that I represent, but also know that, you know, Tom sitting at the table with us and John Magner sitting at the table with us are really working to move the needle and get us those rights and that pay that we deserve. Thank you guys. I really appreciate everything you're doing. Remember to vote on November the 5th or before November the 5th for a candidate that supports labor and supports making sure that we all get the benefits that we need. I'm up here today in my role as a member, not as a candidate, because it's important that we're moving that needle forward to make sure that all of us have state representatives and state senators and mayors and city councilors who are pro-labor and who will always put our needs ahead of corporate greed. So thank you guys and enjoy the rest of the day.
Costas, it's not if you're getting elected, it's when you're getting elected. And we're gonna help Costas get across the finish line. He so very, very impressive the grassroots campaign that you put together, and in partnership with Senator Paul Feeney from the same area, having both Costas and Senator Paul Feeney up on Beacon Hill would really, really enhance our union presence, you know, which is desperately needed. And thank you, Costas, for all you do. Appreciate you being here today. Folks, next on the agenda, we part of our partnership with the International, you know, we apply for these TWR grants and as well as MPO programs, and these MPO programs create a pathway for our own our own members at Local 888 to participate in political activity. And Tony in building out our political department, he's taken it further than any other political director has here at Local 888. And his political organizer, Rachel Wiggins, has been an unbelievable addition to our home here at Local 888, as well as to the political department. So we're going to see a short video related to our MPO program, and Rachel Wiggins will have the opportunity to introduce herself. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm actually out in the field today.
To our home here at Local 888.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay. All right. I'm going to assume yes. All right. As many of you know, the election is less than 3 weeks away. Our member political organizers have knocked hundreds of doors and called thousands of people in support of our pro-labor candidates at every level of government. This election is critical for unions, and our members are helping make the difference. Our MPOs have done work in swing states and across the country to ensure the rights of workers are maintained. We know that every vote counts, especially in state elections, which is why they've put hundreds of hours in outside of their jobs to support labor and to support our candidates. All 6 of our candidates that we worked with won their primaries, and we've been working tirelessly to ensure that they win on November 5th. We're excited to support candidates that will enact laws that will benefit our members and the working class, because as you all know, when we fight, we win. So that's generally what we've been doing. I come from Colorado. I've been working in politics for several years, but I'm excited about the MPO program. I'm excited to see where we can take it and our members that can get involved. So, thank you.
If we're able to get Rachel back on the on the call, we'll play it through lunch. There you go. Fantastic. We're going to slightly pivot. Is Lou Mandarini here yet? Oh. Fantastic. Next on the agenda, we sent our Tony Landry, our political director, as well as Eric Plowden, who is our communication specialist at the local. They went to a convention and sponsored by the IU, and the conversation and the convention was driven by AI and how AI is going to affect our job titles, our chapters, and how we perform our functions for the future. And it's a conversation that we need to prepare to have. And it was good that Tony and Eric went and compiled some information. So if Eric is if he's ready and available, Eric's going to come up and bring us all into the fold on what he learned. Thank you. Eric Plowden.
All righty. Good morning, everybody. Great to see everybody here today. As you can probably tell by the laptop propped in front of me, since we don't have our slides running up top here, I'm just going to be running them there. So unfortunately, you will be missing out on some great visuals, but we'll maybe send those out after this so folks can take a look at that. So as Tom mentioned in his little intro there, our political director, Tony Landry, and I both attended a conference that was attended both by sort of academics that are looking at labor and technology and how that's affecting you in the workplace, as well as folks from, unions and locals across the country. So there were, a number of different topics that were covered there. I guess I want to start things out just to sort of walk you through what I'm going to be talking about here today. So for one, we're going to start just by talking about and distinguishing some of these different kinds of technology that are out there. I know that AI is kind of being thrown around right now as a catch-all for pretty much like anything new in the workplace. So we'll maybe try and dispel some of the confusion about that and categorize some of the tech that we're going to be talking about. We're also then just going to talk about some of the different ways that it can apply and how that may impact you in the workplace. One thing that I do want to note before I dive in here is that luckily for the vast majority of our members, right, we're talking about the public sector. So without having the same kind of profit motive that folks in the private sector do, that does mean that there's a bit less of a push, right, and a drive for the, ultimate efficiency, right? And so work speed ups. However, that doesn't mean, right, that you don't still feel the same sort of pressure to deliver same or more of the same services, right, more efficiently in a short span of time, and how technology can often be used, right, to pressure folks to de-skill and also to basically create that sort of greater pressure within the workplace. And then on the more positive end of things, we're going to be talking about the different unions that we talked to, both at the conference and in my previous work. I was part of an AFL-CIO grant project on technology in the workplace, participated in interviewing folks from about a dozen or so different unions from across the country. And so talking about what they've been able to do at the bargaining table when it comes to using both, contract language, but also public policy to protect our rights as workers, right, and to maintain a quality of work, right, and dignity within the workplace, even with this emerging technology. So for one, to sort of give a broad lay of the land here, I'm going to try and focus sort of on three main categories of technology. Number one, which is one that I think we're relatively all familiar with, is simply worker data collection. Right. So that could be things as simple as, you've got a little firewall, right, that's in your work computer to make sure that you just stay on task, right, and don't wander into YouTube or anything like that. Or, right, more serious things. We see this more in the private sector. But for example, back in the day, it might have been someone just manually going and doing it. But nowadays, there are programs that might, for example, scan your social media, your Facebook, right, to see if there's anything that your employer might find objectionable there. So that when applying to a position, sometimes that decision is already being made for the employer, or at least being influenced for the employer by one of those programs, right? So obviously, we want to make sure that workers' data is being protected and that your privacy as a worker is being respected, right? And how that technology is used, and that folks are being fairly considered for positions, right? And that that's not being given undue weight in how those kinds of hiring decisions are made. So that's one of those sort of major emerging technologies that we have an eye on and that we was discussed at that conference that Tom mentioned. Another one is electronic monitoring. Now, there are a few different ways that we can see this one crop up. All right. Might be as simple, for example, right? You've got a UPS driver, Amazon driver that's got a GPS in the vehicle. Make sure that they're actually going to the sites, right, where they're supposed to be delivering things. But there can also be some more invasive ways that this can appear as well. For example, our brothers and sisters over in 1199, right, a number of whom are home health aides, have to contend with some employers that want to implement effectively electronic sign-ins. It's basically sort of like a Fitbit kind of device, right, that you've got on your wrist. But depending on your employer, depending on the tech that they're using, you've got to check in every 10 minutes, every half hour, right, to reassure them that you're with the client there. Tell them, what dosage of medication you gave them, what kind of tasks that you have them doing, right? So I can see, well, a lot of our folks might be tied to their work site, their individual office. I know that we also have a lot of folks, right, that are doing direct outreach to constituents, conducting home visits, whatever it may be, right? This is a kind of technology that you maybe one day could see introduced in your workplace, right? And being in the public sector, I'm sure that what we'll be hearing from management on that, right, is that, of course, it's about accountability, right, to ensure that those services are being delivered to constituents, which is what you want as well, right? So we want to make sure that that kind of accountability is always balanced with dignity, right, and respect on the job for the worker getting that work done, right? The assumption is if you are in that job, you are a public servant, you want to get those same things accomplished, right, as your managers, as your supervisor. In that same sort of vein, third kind of technology that's on the horizon that we see being implemented in a lot of different places is what we call algorithmic management, which sounds kind of fancy, but it's relatively simple when you get down to brass tacks on it. So essentially, algorithmic management can work out in a whole lot of different ways. It's usually a software or an app where essentially, let's say, for example, if you are in our property management chapter over in the city of Boston, right? Somebody that's visiting a few different sites to make repairs. That's something where your supervisor can go in and, for example, assign higher, urgency, right, to a given task, right, and use that to check in on you, right, to be able to say, hey, right, why have you not performed task X, right? We place that at the top of your priority there, right? And so we want to keep an eye out for any of those technologies as they come out into the workplace. As right, we don't want it to be an app that's telling you, right, what the greatest priority is. As we know, right, and as we'll always maintain, nobody knows your job better than you do, right? And so we want to make sure that these technologies are just enhancing and augmenting your ability to get that job done, not dictating the way that you do it or what your priorities ought to be on the job. And so from that previous research that I did with the AFL-CIO, I talked to a number of folks across the country that have been involved in bargaining over technology. So to give a little example of that algorithmic management I was just talking about, one of the groups of folks we talked to were hospitality workers out in Vegas with Unite Here, right? Huge union of folks that work within, the hospitality industry. And with the huge hotels and casinos that they have there, they have quite a large constituency of members. Well, what ended up happening to the folks out there is that their management ended up introducing that same kind of algorithmic management app that I was just talking about for their housekeepers. But what that app prioritized, let's keep in mind, we're talking about these huge, right, multi-story, huge wings of hotels in these casinos. And what that app would do is that rather than prioritize as you're going about your tasks, right, the room that's nearest to you to get your job done in the most efficient way possible, right, and to make sure that those rooms are clean for the existing guests, what it prioritized was sending people all the way across the hotel to make sure and clean a room that a guest had just left, right, so that they have the most turnover possible. So it's not about, right, what makes the most sense necessarily, but what's in the employer's best interest. And so we want to keep in mind when we see these kinds of technology emerging that we can develop contract language, right, and a robust way to respond to it so that we ensure that that technology is being used in a manner that's fair to workers on the job, right, and in a way that is enhancing public services, not impeding them, right? Another really big example that I want to take a look at here is what the Transportation Workers Union were able to do, TWU. Back in 2021, when Congress was drafting that huge infrastructure bill that was passed, one of the components in it is a whole bunch of stuff around, switching over to electric, renewable energy. And one of those things is basically, they call it, fleet electrification for, your municipal or a county bus system, right, to swap over from fossil fuels to having, in the combustion engine, to having electric ones. Now, as a result of that transition, on average, your electric engine is going to require about 33% less maintenance than an internal combustion one. What does that mean? About a 33% less need for the maintenance workers, right, who are maintaining those vehicles and making sure that they stay on the road. And so as part of that infrastructure bill, what the TWU was able to lobby for and what they got was to ensure that in any kind of funding that states apply to where they get that kind of electrification, 5% of that funding has to immediately go to retraining, right? For those maintenance workers, we're going to probably see a loss of employment as a result of it and find a way to transition them into a new role. And so I just really want to emphasize that because, again, with the vast majority of members of your union being in the public sector, public policy is one of the most direct, tangible ways, right, that we can impact your working conditions. And so making sure that we have a good regulatory framework, both for how this kind of management technology gets introduced and for cases like this, making sure that there is a just transition for workers, right, for these kinds of changes in the workplace so that there is not a loss of employment, loss of compensation, right, or an increase in responsibilities as the result of this technology being introduced. And so to kind of wrap things up here, there's just a few things that I sort of want folks to walk away today from this presentation. For one, I just want to maybe dispel some of the fear that there might be around AI. I think that one large takeaway that Tony and I got from the conference that we attended is that while there are certainly new workplaces that are implementing this kind of technology, starting to experiment with it, it's not quite ready for prime time. And so that means that we still have an opportunity both at the legislative level to have a regulatory framework on how this kind of tech is going to get used, especially within the public sector. And, right, we have an opportunity at the bargaining table to incorporate language that allows us to bargain over technology before it gets introduced, right? And so I think one of the biggest priorities that we have from this is to make it, right, so that the burden of proof is on the employer, right, when it comes to introducing this technology, that they have to demonstrate to us, to demonstrate to you as workers, that this is going to make your job easier. It's going to make public services, right, easier to deliver to constituents, right, in a way that doesn't disrupt the current workflow that you've got at your job, right? And that it's not just being arbitrarily introduced, right? Because a manager or supervisor thinks that it might be more efficient, thinks that it might be helpful, right? For you and the constituents that you're serving. As well as that, a very important component then is going to be myself and Tony basically making the rounds both to, city councils throughout the state and to our allies in the state house to make sure that we have some sort of regulation, particularly when it comes to generative AI and the ways that that can be used within the workplace, right? California, unfortunately, just had its governor veto a bill that would have regulated some of the use, especially when it comes to using people's voices and likeness. However, Massachusetts has not had a comparable bill come up yet, and so we have a golden opportunity here to shape the way that that is regulated and the way that it's introduced into our workplaces. And so while I will be handcuffed to the AV booth for most of this presentation, please feel free during lunch to come up if you've got any questions, either for me or Tony. And, if you do see any technology like this being introduced or, whispers of it perhaps being introduced in your work site, get a hold of your chapter officers, get a hold, of your rep so that we can develop a response to that. But thanks for listening to me, folks, and enjoy the rest of the convention.
All right, thanks so much. Man, you present well, and you know the material cold. That's great. And these are all concerns, AI concerns for the future. And thank you for attending that conference and presenting to our membership. At this time, I'd like to, if we can give a warm welcome to the senior advisor for the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Lou Mandarini. Lou Mandarini is our conduit for labor relations. He is involved in all collective bargaining agreements in the city of Boston. We're so very blessed to have a relationship with Lou, and he's been very, very impactful for all of us and our successes in the city thus far. Can't thank Lou enough, and we're very, very happy to have him here today. Warm welcome for Lou Mandarini, please.
Morning, all. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I have the good sense to know that when I'm the one guy standing between you and lunch, I should talk quick and only talk about the stuff that you want to hear. So let me just say, I want to say a few words about the special partnership that we've got with Local 888. We've got a special partnership with a lot of our labor unions, but a particularly strong one with Local 888. So how many people here are from Boston or work in the city? Okay, so we got a lot. So I think all of you know when the mayor came into office on November 16th of 2021, every labor contract in the city was expired. The last one that was in force expired the night before she came in. That's never happened before. No mayor has ever faced that in the city of Boston. In the span of less than 2 years, we closed every single one of them, except two that we took a little bit longer, but we closed almost all of them. And it isn't just a story of taking collective bargaining seriously and putting it at the center of what we do, but we're also trying to make collective bargaining work better. That's a fundamental theme, and one that we have had good fortune to work with Local 888. So not only in the process of closing all of those contracts in record time, but one of the other things that we've done is that in the first year, we cut reliance on outside management attorneys by 50%. But I'm not done. In the second year, we cut down on the usage of outside management attorneys by 90%. So we are doing our own bargaining at the table. It is city officials and the union. This is how collective bargaining should work. And the benefit of that is that it has sped up our ability to settle contracts. Now, we haven't reached the goal that we want to reach, which is that we want a successor contract ready to go when a contract expires. That is the goal of the Wu administration. And if we reach that, we'll know that we've succeeded. The days of going years and years and years without contracts and letting them lapse and, you go 3, 4, 5 years without a raise, those days are over. We won't allow it. We won't allow it. And so let me also say too, do we have any folks from the 911, the operations center here at the city of Boston? Okay, so this is another place where we've had some real success in, when we came in shortly into the second year, we found that approximately better than 50% of the call taker positions were open. Budgeted positions weren't filled. We couldn't hold on to people. Dispatchers, it was about 38% of the positions were unfilled. So we undertook with Local 888 far-reaching opportunity to sort of rebuild and reclassify those positions to make them much more attractive. We raised salaries substantially. And a couple of other things that we did to really help make those jobs attractive. We became the first municipality in Massachusetts, and we're going to lead on this fight to classify these workers, call takers and dispatchers, as public safety workers rather than administrative workers. These workers are every bit public safety in the same way that cops, firefighters, and EMTs are, and it is long overdue that they are recognized as such. And we are leading that fight. And then another advancement we made too, we have succeeded with another union in civilianizing the leadership of the 911 call taker center so that it isn't led by sworn officers anymore. That's a advancement we got in another labor contract, and we fully intend to create career pathways so that call takers and dispatchers can advance into actually leading the department. And that's another attractive way that people can stay in those jobs and advance and flourish and have, a career pathway that they can look forward to something rather than, staying in the same position for decades and decades with no advancement opportunity. So, and then I think another piece more generally with respect to collective bargaining, another advancement that we've pursued, we focused like a laser beam in this next round of contract negotiations, which we started early last year. And SEIU 888 was the second contract we reached. We are focused like a laser beam on raising the salaries and directing more money to the people that make less than $60,000 a year. So we were able to do that, and essentially it resulted in salaries for most of your members of between 14 and 16% over the course of a 4-year contract. Now, decade after decade after decade, Boston has seen everybody gets the same percentage, whether you make $40,000 or you make $110,000. So the person making $110,000 is always made out much better than the poor person who needs the most help. So that's a problem that we sought to remedy this time, and it has been very successful so far. SEIU 888 was a beneficiary of it, and it was a really exciting win for both sides. So that's just a snapshot of what we've been doing in the city of Boston. I want to touch on one more thing, and then I'll leave you to be on sandwich patrol. So we have been in a fight, I think a lot of you know, and 888 has been very helpful on this, at the state legislature about a tax shift. There is some documentation, there's about 75 copies on the table next to me that provide greater detail than you can possibly imagine. But the thrust of this is that for those people who live in the city of Boston, residents, if we don't tailor the shift that exists between commercial property and residential property, residents are going to see a very significant increase in their property taxes come the third quarter next year. Could be on order of 27%. So what we're trying to do is pursue a shift in the state legislature. We've got a home rule petition that's in front of the state Senate right now that will shift how much commercial taxpayers pay versus residential taxpayers. And basically what it comes down to is that we're trying to hold down to single digits what residents will face versus what commercial property will face. It has been a ferocious fight because the downtown business crowd has opposed us with everything they have. And we're out there defending our residents and defending our workers. 888 has been essential in testifying at city council hearings and at the state house and lobbying and turning out people for our town halls, and cannot thank you enough for everything that you've done. But the fight's not over. So we're close. We're very close. We may have the outlines of a deal, and there's a little bit more to do. But if you all want to read up a little bit more on it and sort of understand the issues, we're on the 5-yard line. So thank you for all you've done so far. There may be more to come, but also thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your convention.
Folks, in the conversation of first time ever and successes that we've had in the city of Boston have completely and utterly been attributed to our work partnership with Lou Mandarini and the mayor. And, we so value this and this partnership. And we take the same position related to successor contracts. Like everyone in this room, you could probably remember how cumbersome that was, like, trying to settle a contract, and waiting 2.5 years, 3 years to settle. We remain at the bargaining table. We love being at the bargaining table, and we love working with our partners at the city of Boston. And exactly what Lou had mentioned related to the tax plan. Please, we'll pass it around. We'll leave it on everyone's table. But essentially, give that a read. We're going to be asking you to as it relates to, we have support on the House, but we're looking to have more support on the Senate side. And it simply outlines a fair share approach, and having more emphasis on commercial property rather than property owners and renters to be croaked with an incredible hike and spike in their property tax. So give it a read. We'll be sending some additional communications out, so we can certainly have further discussions. But thank you very much, Lou Mandarini, for being here today. So I think at this time we should probably break for lunch, and so we'll reconvene in about a half hour. But let's enjoy and mingle and get to know your fellow members, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you. Folks, there is a raffle right outside with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have a booth right outside, and they are raffling off Ray-Ban sunglasses. If you can get a ticket and put it in, and
Good morning, members of SEIU 888. Thank you to President Tom McKeever and the hardworking team that makes events like this possible. And thank you to all the members for everything you do for our state throughout the year, both as those working in the public sector and as advocates for justice and equity. You don't just keep Massachusetts moving, you make us stronger. I know you represent nearly 8,000 municipal, state, early ed, and higher ed workers. 888 has always been on the front lines of the fight for fair wages, safe working conditions, and the dignity and respect that every worker deserves. I'll always be a partner in that work. And that's why we created the state's first ever Labor Advisory Council, and also why we created the new position of Labor Advisor in the governor's office. We've appointed dozens of union leaders to our boards and commissions, and together we've delivered on promises that will make life more affordable for working families. Things like free community college, free school breakfast and lunch, and the most generous universal child tax credit in the entire country.
Done for us for the past.
We're at an inflection point in our nation's
You've already
history.
heard what our contract
You know that.
accomplished.
We know that. It's really important that we stand together on the side of working people, that we protect the right to organize, and work together to make sure that every worker is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve.
Right.
2 years ago, I stood with SEIU as we made history together in this state.
And
Now we have
Joe
another
guided us through
opportunity to
this
make
whole
history once
process
again
with so
and
much
lead our
patience
nation forward.
and strength.
So
and
let's work
humor.
together and get after it. Thank
One
you
of the
again
teachers
for your
wrote,
dedication to the people of our
"Dear
state,
Joe, my
and
life
enjoy
is
the rest of the
safer
convention.
because of you." And you know what Tom was saying about raising the cap, I think is really important because we need the funds to have bigger teams to help support the organizing efforts. And it's a virtuous cycle, right? When they have more support, we can get more members. When we have more members, we have more strength. And the labor movement is what's protecting democracy in our country. So thank you, Joe, for not just helping us individual teachers, but for making it this more sustainable place for all workers. Thank you so much.
That's great. And if I may say, Joe Montana is his institutional knowledge in the private sector is fantastic. He knows a lot more than our in-house attorneys from time to time. So Joe is certainly a secret weapon for us in these endeavors with higher ed and specifically in childcare and our pathway to organize them. So thank you, Joe, for all of your efforts. So, without further ado, we have another guest. I'd like to, if we can give a warm welcome from SEIU Local 88 and its members to Sean Duhamel. Sean is the Chief Executive Officer of Mass Retire Association for over 30 years experience in government relations across public and private and nonprofit sectors. Honestly, folks, it's our end game to get to retirement. And, we field a lot of questions as it relates to, that pathway. And we thought it was necessary to bring Sean in here, if there's any questions or things that you want to raise. Sean is an expert in this field, and we appreciate him being here today.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone being here on a Saturday, absolutely gorgeous Saturday. We can't complain about the weather. But I'm Sean Duhamel. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Mass Retirees Association. Hopefully all of you one day will be a member of our association. We are the only group in Massachusetts that represents all retired public employees across the entire Commonwealth, regardless of where someone works. So it doesn't matter if you are from the city of Boston, the state, retired teacher, cop, firefighter, from P-Town to Pittsfield, we represent everybody. We were formed back in 1968. And when Tom reached out to me a few weeks ago to see if I'd be available today, I jumped at the opportunity. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Primarily, I can't tell you over the last 30 years the number of calls I've received from new members of our association that, you know, join us after they've retired, only to tell us, you know, I wish I knew what I've learned since becoming a member of Mass Retirees, but before I retired. So whether it's about their health care, choices with their pension, the Social Security weapon GPO, all of the different things that are going to impact your ability and your quality of life as a retiree, you really need to know about that now. And I know there's a variety of age ranges here, but all of you at one point are going to become retired. Some of you maybe sooner rather than later. So I'm just going to quickly walk through a few things that to keep in mind, to give you some peace of mind that we have a great retirement system here in Massachusetts. We are extremely fortunate, not just on the pension side, but the healthcare benefits that you have as active employees, and certainly my members have as retirees, are really second to none. We work with retiree groups from all across the country, and the horror stories we hear about just the quality of healthcare plans, the amount of money that retirees are forced to pay for inferior benefits, it's really shocking. And it really just makes me appreciate, no matter, you know, how much we're trying to do better here in Massachusetts, and that's a daily struggle, we're head and shoulders above everybody else. So I guess to start, as a public employee, you are one of the final groups, unfortunately, of active workers in the United States that have what's known as a defined benefit pension. This used to be commonplace up until the 1980s, when the private sector, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, but mostly corporate greed, drove defined benefit pensions into extinction in the private sector for the most part. There are some examples where they still exist, you know, the auto industry, employers like Raytheon and Boeing that still have large union presence, but by and large, they're gone. And what's replaced that is a 401k or something similar, which is okay, but you're not guaranteed that monthly benefit for the rest of your life. And I know a conversation I just had with one of your members talking about the value of that defined benefit plan versus the SMART plan or deferred compensation plans that you also have access to. And they really work hand in hand. So in terms of the defined benefit pension plan that you have, depending on when you started working, that's what's going to influence how that plan is calculated when it comes time for you to retire. If you started working for the government before April of 2012, you're under the older system. And under that system, I think almost all of you are in Group 1, which most public employees are Group 1. There are 4 different groups in Massachusetts, and they're really based on the dangerous level of your job. Or the job classification is really what it comes down to. So police and firefighters are in Group 4. State police have their own group, Group 3. Group 2 is kind of this in-between system where we have people who work in some of the state hospitals and so forth. Their jobs are a little bit more dangerous, more physically demanding. They're in Group 2. But for the most part, people are in Group 1. So for my comments now, I'm going to focus on Group 1. Under the old legacy system, you had to be 65 years old in order to get the full age calculation under Group 1, which is 2.5%. That 2.5% reduces by a tenth for every year prior to age 65 under Group 1. So at 64, it'd be 2.4, 63, 2.3, and so forth and so on. That age calculation, you multiply that by the number of years of credible service you have. The minimum years of service you need is 10 years to be vested in the system and be eligible to retire. So that's the magic number. And that makes you eligible not only for your pension, but also for your health insurance benefit, which is equally important. We have a lot of members who worked the bare minimum of 10 years, and they won't admit it, but we know it was more for the health insurance than it was for the pension. And I'll share with you and my own family. My wife was a City of Boston employee for 5 years, left her money in the system when she went back to the private sector. But we're still talking about her coming back into public service for the additional 5 years, because I want that health insurance benefit when her and I both retire. So I know how valuable it is. But if you get your 10 years, you're eligible to retire. So it would be 2.5 times the number of years of service. The maximum calculation is 80%. You can't go beyond 80% for your benefit. So if you work 34 years, 2.5 times 34 would give you the 80%. So that's the magic number. When it starts to, when your retirement date starts to approach, when you really start thinking about it, and when I'm saying starts to approach, when you're, say, 2 or 3 years out, start to make sure that you've bought back any other time you have. It is probably not a bad idea to look at that now, regardless of how old you are. And the reason why I say that, we're finding more and more that employees across the board don't necessarily stay with one employer your entire career. You may start with the city of Boston and end up with the state, or vice versa, or the city of Boston and going to another system. The beauty of our retirement law in Massachusetts is it is portable across all public employers. The only exception to that is the MBTA. The MBTA is a quasi-public agency. Their benefits are completely different than what any of you would have. So that time that you may have with Boston or the state, you can't transfer that to the T, and the same would apply to a T worker coming over to the state side. They're two separate systems. The other big difference with your benefits as a Massachusetts public employee is you do not participate in Social Security, which is a key factor that when you eventually retire, even if you qualify for Social Security, and to qualify for Social Security, you need a minimum of 40 quarters, which is the equivalent of 10 years of work. That would qualify you for the minimum Social Security benefit. Most public retirees qualify for some Social Security, but that benefit is then reduced by one of two federal laws, either the windfall elimination provision, that's referred to as the WEP. It's a so-called anti-double dipping law. It was passed back in 1983. That would apply to your own Social Security benefit. So if you do qualify for Social Security, if you have less than 30 years under Social Security, as of now, the WEP will reduce that amount. There's a second law called the Government Pension Offset, the GPO. That applies to spousal Social Security benefits. So under the old system, before 1983, you could retire with a public pension, and if your spouse was eligible for Social Security, you would get half of their Social Security benefit while they were alive. And when they passed away, if they predeceased the retiree would be eligible for 100% of that benefit. Under the GPO, your public pension will offset what you're eligible for under Social Security. And in most cases now, it completely wipes out the Social Security benefit under the GPO law. I can't tell you the number of calls we get to this very day from retirees who either were unaware that these two federal laws existed or just didn't understand the scope of what it would mean to them in terms of their retirement income. And I've had retirees in tears on the phone on multiple occasions saying, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I can't keep the roof over my head. This is unfair. Yes, it is unfair. But there's a lot of things in life that are unfair. There's a lot of laws that are unfair, and we work every day to try to fix those things. Unfortunately, as of now, for 41 years, Congress has left these laws in place. Now, a lot of progress is being made at the federal level. For the first time ever, this current congressional session, we're very close to a vote taking place in the House of Representatives that would repeal both of these laws. But to be honest, we believe that this remains a long shot. If anything, we think that there'll be some type of a reform that will make WEP and GPO a little bit fairer. But even that is difficult. Most of the country contributes to Social Security. If you come from a state where this is not a big deal, even though there are pockets of retirees spread all across all 50 states, Massachusetts is one of just a handful of states that is entirely outside of Social Security. So it has a disproportionate impact on all of us. All of the folks who have been up on the screen that the union has endorsed, our Massachusetts congressional delegation, are firmly in our corner trying to fix this, and they continue to sign on to bills year after year. But the votes just haven't been there in previous sessions. So as of today, the laws are in existence. Hopefully by the time you guys retire, something will have changed, but it's just something to be very much aware of. I started to say a minute ago, in terms of retirement planning, make sure that you have bought back any time you may have from different systems. Some of that time may have come when you were a kid, working summers, maybe for the MDC or other City of Boston and so forth, as a teenager. That time, even though you may have not paid into the system back then, if you still have paperwork, or if the city has paperwork to prove that you worked, that could be bought back to add towards your pension. So those 2 or 3 months, over the course of a few summers, can add up. So just, think about it. But if you do think you have orphan time out there, go to the retirement board with the City of Boston or the state or whatever system you happen to be a member of, and work on buying that time back, because it's going to take a while, particularly if the time is spread out or if it goes back decades. Like I said, if you were a kid working back then, it's going to take a little bit of time to pull those records together. So you don't want to walk in there, a month before you're going to retire, because you're not going to be able to do it. And you have to buy the time back before you retire. Once you are out, you're out. There's no going back. Both state and federal law do not allow for retirees to retroactively purchase time back under any circumstance. Not going to happen. So it's something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is another issue that we're working to resolve at the state level under the State Retirement Board recently, there has been a significant delay in new retirees receiving their first pension check. And the Retirement Board and Treasurer Goldberg are working to improve this. But like a lot of agencies, there's been a significant shortage of employees, and they're having trouble hiring and retaining people since the pandemic. I think we're seeing that across the board. But because of that, we're seeing new retirees in some cases having to wait 4 or 5 months before they get a pension check. I know I couldn't go 4 or 5 months without a paycheck. So keep that in mind. And it's terrible, because no public employee, nobody in general, but particularly public employees who are not getting rich in the jobs you guys are doing, it's very unfair. Just isn't right to force people to wait that amount of time when it should be a pretty straightforward process. There are always going to be exceptions or weird circumstances that may drag things out, but for the most part, it shouldn't take any more than 60 days. And again, it's something that collectively people are trying to fix, but as of now, it remains a problem. The last thing I want to mention, that I'd like, if there's any questions from anybody in terms of if time allows, but with your health care, all of you as a public retiree are eligible for retiree health insurance when you go out. If you're a City of Boston retiree or a state retiree, your surviving spouse, if you predecease your spouse, they are eligible for a survivor healthcare benefit for the rest of their lives. Some of the smaller towns across Massachusetts do not provide survivor healthcare benefits, which is something we've long tried to fix, but it remains a problem. But the larger systems, the state and City of Boston, cover everybody. One of the things to keep in mind is, as a public retiree in Massachusetts, if you become eligible for Medicare at age 65, you have to enroll in Medicare A and B. And this is a good thing, because Medicare is less expensive for retirees than the non-Medicare plans. The reason for that is the federal government picks up the majority of the cost when it comes to Medicare. The co-payments are much lower under Medicare than the non-Medicare plan. And there's no deductible under the Medicare plan. Right now, if you're a state worker, you have a $500 annual deductible per person, or $1,000 per family. It's a lot of money. And that goes away once you are enrolled in Medicare. But you're still going to have full insurance benefits. So we call it turning 65. So about 4 or 5 months before you or your spouse were to turn 65, we advise our members to contact Medicare, start that process of enrolling in the program, notify either the state GIC or the City of Boston or your other, wherever you happen to be retired from, the insurance department. Let them know that this is in the works. Hey, my birthday's coming up, in November, and I need to enroll in a Medicare supplement plan. The Medicare supplement plan is what either the GIC, the city of Boston, or the entity that you retire from will be providing as the health insurance benefit going forward, in addition to Medicare. You need both. I would strongly advise everyone right now, do not enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. Those are the plans that you're probably seeing advertised on TV right now. It's Medicare open enrollment period. The plans suck. I'm sorry for the language. I think I'm in friendly company here. They suck. Don't enroll in them. The ones you see on TV are terrible. Some of these people should be charged with criminal offenses for the scams that they're running on folks. However, the plan that Blue Cross is running is a good plan. The plan that Tufts has for the GIC is a good plan, but they are not as good as the traditional Medicare sup plans. The MedX plan that Blue Cross offers is fantastic. The GIC's WellPoint Medicare Extension Plan is fantastic. Stick with the tried and true plans. You know, I know that price is always going to be something that you're going to have to consider, but when it comes to health insurance, you know, you get what you pay for. And you might be healthy today, but we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. That's the whole nature of insurance. All it takes is one illness, one injury, one accident, and you know, it's going to set you back. And you need to make sure that when it comes to health insurance, not only are you fully covered, but that you can access the doctors and the hospitals that you want. And if you go into one of these less expensive, inferior plans, the reason why they're less expensive is that they have very narrow, limited networks that restrict the hospitals and the doctors that you are allowed to see. And if you go outside of the network, guess what? You're paying for it out of pocket. And we run into that sometimes with our members. They'll call up and say, you know, I just got a $5,000 bill in the mail. What are you talking about? You should have full insurance. And come to find out, they took the least expensive plan and they went out of the network and they get hit with this bill. Sometimes we can work it out, particularly with our friends at Blue Cross and Blue Shield and WellPoint that we have very strong relationships with. And it's great to see Blue Cross here today. We work hand in hand with them at the local level. But it's buyer beware when it comes to this stuff. The other consideration, the last point I'll make, and I'd like to hear if you guys have any questions, is if you plan on moving outside of Massachusetts after you retire. We have a lot of members who move south, although we have more and more members who are choosing to move back up here from Florida, who are tired of the winters, the storms, and the right-wing politics that are going on down there, so they're coming home. But if you choose to go elsewhere, you are fully covered in terms of your health insurance. Your pension, you can receive that regardless of where you live, as it's your choice. But your health insurance options are going to be limited. Most, whether it's the city of Boston, the state, most cities and towns, they limit the choice to one plan if you happen to move outside of the coverage zone here. It's just the way it works. And that plan, unfortunately, ends up being a little bit more expensive. So with that, I know there are other folks coming in, and I deeply appreciate your time. So any questions, ma'am? It's still 80%. Yep. So thank you for mentioning that, because I kind of skipped over that part. So in 2012, the retirement law changed. Okay. Yep. So you can still get to 80%. You just need to work a little bit longer. So people hired from April 2nd. The law took effect technically on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day in 2012. Oh, so you're covered. You're under the old system. Yeah. Hey, I did my job. So for I'll get you just a second. So anybody who starts from April 2nd onward is under the new benefit system. So instead of 65, those folks now need to work to 67 to get the full age calculation. Right now, for those of you who started working before April of 2012, when you retire, the benefit is calculated on your highest consecutive 3-year average, which for most people is the last 3 years you work, but it's the highest consecutive 3-year average. In 2012, that changed to the highest 5 consecutive years. So newer employees have to work a little bit longer, And instead of a 3-year average, they're looking at a 5-year average, which lowers the value, unfortunately, of the benefit in many cases. So we fought tooth and nail back then, as did the unions alongside of us, and we lost that fight by and large. It could have been worse, but we don't like to see people's benefits being eroded, particularly for the amount of money that you guys are paying into the system. You're paying 10% into the system, which is a lot of money. If you were in Social Security, it'd be 6.2%. And another fight that we're starting to very closely look at is once the city of Boston and the state are fully funded, that right now there's no requirement in the retirement law that they continue to pay their share into the pension system. So in the future, you could be paying your 10% in, but the city of Boston could walk away with paying 0. That's not right. And we need to get out in front of this and fix it before that day comes and Michelle Wu decides to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on something else rather than paying the money into the retirement system where it should be. So we're going to be more vocal on it. I know I'm going to be talking to Tom more frequently about this going forward because we got to work together and get out in front. Sir, do you have something? Oh, the COLA.
Yeah, but the base, exactly. But the basis of it is really kind of small.
It is.
Is it being indexed to inflation or anything like that?
That's the goal. So the cost of living adjustment. Massachusetts is one of the few states that continues to pay a COLA year in and year out, but it's limited. So even though the COLA is granted and it becomes a permanent part of your pension going forward, is based on what we call a COLA base. So the state right now is a $13,000 COLA base. The city of Boston has a $15,000 COLA base. The 3% COLA is based on the 13,000, the 15,000. So it's limited in scope. Other states have other funding methods. They'll pass a COLA, but it's limited to $500 or $800. Many states now, when they do pay a COLA, it's treated as a bonus payment. They call it a 13th check, where it does not become part of your permanent pension. And even in those cases, it's limited. But in terms of our system, our goal is as these systems become fully funded, we want to see those COLA benefits be expanded, be improved. That's your money in there. And all these years of the state playing makeup because they didn't start paying their share into the system until the mid 80s. And they had this huge unfunded liability they had to pay off. The system just wasn't designed to pay large COLA benefits, and we're gradually trying to change that. Our association initiated a special commission on the COLA that's about to get underway. My association president, Frank Valeri, your representative on the state retirement board, has a seat at the table. The state and teacher retirement systems are also at the table, along with A&F, the House and Senate chairs of public service, to try to figure out a better way to fund the COLA and make recommendations of how that can be improved going forward, while also creating a benefit for long-term retirees, people who have been out for 15 years or more, to find a way to give them a little bit of an extra boost, kind of to play makeup with inflation. But, these are all things in the works, but unfortunately, like most stuff, it costs money. You have time for one more, Tom?
Actually, if you don't mind,
Okay.
We're going to stick with the agenda.
Yep. Thank you so much.
I can't tell you how valuable it is to have Sean Duhamel here today and having, the resources and the ability to count on Sean, to help us and with these explanations. I'm sure we can do a town hall specifically on retirement. As I mentioned before, it's our end game. It's very important to all of us. And, maybe we can, with the partnership with Sean Duhamel, we could do exactly that. We can create some type of town hall, and we can, have everyone zoom in, depending on everyone's schedules. And
Happy to help.
More particularly with Sean's schedule. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, let me know. I'm happy to help. Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, folks. Yeah, it's it's wonderful to have these partnerships both with state retirement and others and the guests that you met today. And it's they're always a phone call away, and they're always vested in Local 888. And if I may, our next guest is District 6 Councilor Ben Weber. And Ben is with the city of Boston. He serves West Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, and parts of Roxbury. From 2008 to 2012, Ben served as an assistant attorney general with Massachusetts in the Attorney General's office in both fair labor and division. And Ben has worked with Licton and Liz Reardon Associates. And we have a partnership with Harold Licton and Liz Reardon. And they were the ones that told us that part of our hallmark languages and our health and safety language needs to change, and we need something with more grit and teeth. And it was great, to have that conversation. But again, in the spirit of partnership, we're very, very happy. And let's give Councilor Ben Weber a warm welcome.
Okay, hello. You can hear me? So yeah, my name is Ben Weber. I represent Jamaica Plain and West Roxbury on the Boston City Council. But before I joined the City Council, I worked for 18 years as an attorney. One of the first cases I worked on, I represented migrant farm workers in the South. I represented migrant cotton gin workers who worked at a cotton gin in West Memphis, Arkansas. These men had traveled from North Mexico, South Texas, thousands of miles to this cotton gin. They were living there, and they weren't being paid what they were promised. They were paying less than their hourly wage. They're earning less than minimum wage. They were forced to live in a trailer behind the cotton gin in horrible conditions that failed every health and safety rule in place. And I worked on that case to just get them minimum wage and get them their small fines that the farmer was liable for those workers. Later on, I moved to Boston with Licton, Liz Reardon, Shannon Liz Reardon, Harold Licton. I worked on a case with delivery drivers, people who did deliveries for IKEA, right here out of a warehouse in Franklin. Those drivers were misclassified as independent contractors. Every driver was supposedly an independent business. And as a consequence of that misclassification, they were forced to pay for everything for their work. They had to pay for their truck. They had to pay for their uniforms. They had to pay their helpers. And whenever they damaged a house, they had to pay for that damage. And we brought a case saying those deductions, those were illegal deductions from their pay every time they were forced to pay $1,000 for a damage to a wall. And these are drivers, if you ever had a delivery of an appliance or furniture, they get paid about $35 a stop. And out of that, they have to pay their helper, they pay the gas. If God forbid they damage any property, they're paying for that. And often these people were paying just to work. They would spend money, lose money every week just to work. Lastly, I'll just mention another case I worked on with Harold Licton. We represented cable installers, people who had Comcast, or no, maybe not Comcast, it was Mediacom in the Midwest. And these cable installers would work 70, 80 hours a week. They would not get overtime pay. They were also classified as independent contractors. They had to pay for their equipment. They had to pay for any damage. And we were able to win them some money in that case because these people are wearing the uniform of Mediacom. If you're a Mediacom customer, you call them, they show up. They're there. You think they're a Mediacom employee, and it's wrong to not pay them overtime, make them pay for their own costs. Something that links these farm workers, delivery drivers, cable installers is none of these workers had the benefit of representation by a union. Okay. And so that kind of work that I've done for 18 years, it really drove home that the only way workers get a fair shake in this country is if they organize and bargain collectively and have a union like SEIU 888 to back them up. So that's kind of how I've used that background in my job on the city council to help fight for union representation for our workers here in the city. And I've only been on the council for 9 months, but I've sort of looked at a couple different things. One is I put forward a wage theft ordinance. Marty Walsh has an executive order, had an executive order to prohibit contracts from going to employers who habitually fail to pay their workers. Yeah. Yeah. It had, I think, resulted in one actual instance of enforcement since it had been, Marty Walsh should put that forward. Mayor Wu has done a better job. We're now tracking who are the bad actors in the area. The Mayor's Office of Labor Compliance did a review of recent wage theft violations issued by the Fair Labor Division at the AG's office. And they found that 30% of businesses that either got city contracts or awarded city licenses had a wage theft violation in their record in the last 5 years. So I think it's our job to make sure, we connect the dots. We have a database so that the procurement officers are not issuing contracts to employers who violate our workers' rights, that our licensing board is not issuing licenses to restaurants that don't pay their workers. And so I'm proud to push that kind of thing on the city council. I've also pushed for a heat ordinance where workers who are working outside or inside under harsh conditions get guaranteed protections from the heat. Honestly, the unions have sort of been the guiding light for us in that, because often in their CBAs they do push for that. And another thing that I'm strongly supporting is reclassification of 911 operators to be first responders. I have to say I've met with union leaders, Tom McKeever, Tony Landry, and others, and they made the case. To me, it seems like an open and shut case that people who are working on the front lines, who often working long hours, who want to help people and have to suffer, often suffer from PTSD and other effects, because they're the first ones getting a call, from someone who's in the worst moment of their lives, and they're there to help them. And I think we should do whatever we can, as a city and as a state, to support those workers. And so I'm proud to be working with your leaders to support that on the city council. And lastly, I would say, and I think you heard from Lou Mandarini, and he talked a little bit about the tax proposal that we're dealing with, and that I support the mayor's tax proposal. Part of the reason is we need to support our workers here in Boston and to protect them from a one-time spike in their property taxes. People are on fixed incomes; they can't afford to pay those things, and we need to do whatever we can to do that. So, I've kept that in mind. One of the things I've pushed for is counsel for folks in eviction proceedings here in Boston, or not here because we're in Braintree, sorry, but in Boston, that will support people who are living in Boston, who are faced with eviction, and just provide them with an attorney so they can make sure their rights are enforced. And it's our pilot is for anybody who lives in Boston who has a kid in school. If they're faced with an eviction, they can be provided with an attorney, because we want to make sure those families especially are able to stay in their homes, and that we protect them. So I'm learning a lot on the job. I'm learning from your leaders about how I can advocate for them, for you. And I'll continue to do that for unionized labor in Boston. And thank you for giving me the chance to speak today. Okay.
Folks, Ben Weber is an absolute champion on behalf of working class folks in District 6. And we're so happy to have a partnership with Ben. And he's been very, very helpful with our political department and Tony Landry as it relates to the executive order that Mayor Wu has put forth on behalf of emergency 911 operators and dispatchers with BPD. And our end game is to work with counselors like Ben, and certainly he's guiding us in our platform to create a home rule petition, and hopefully, with us being successful in this home rule petition and recognizing the dispatchers as first responders, that will help our legislation with the state. And we have some of our state brothers here that are also with state police dispatch and emergency 911. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, Ben. At this time, I'd like to introduce Richard Ravosa. And Richard is an attorney by trade, and he is a fantastic. I can't believe that we have such a resource in Richard. Richard is the founder and creator of Debt Relief Foundation, and Richard is an absolute humanitarian and trial attorney. Formed an organization, Debt Relief Foundation, as a charitable foundation. The mission is to improve the quality of life for people who are unduly burdened with excessive debts, providing compassionate and effective pro bono legal representation in order to eliminate debt, to restore peace and mind. It's our pleasure to introduce Richard Ravosa, and honestly, the services that he provides, like from time to time, and I'll let Richard explain, but losing a spouse, you can potentially accrue so much debt, and having complete humanitarians and attorneys like Richard that provides these things on a pro bono basis on behalf of people that really need the services. I'm very, very honored to know Richard, and happy to work with him in advancing his foundation. Richard, thank you.
Thank you, President McKeever, for having me speak today. I'm honored to be here. And as President McKeever said, I am the founder and volunteer attorney for the Massachusetts Debt Relief Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we help people in Massachusetts overcome debt with dignity. That's part of our mission statement. And the reason for that aspect of the mission statement is not having enough money to pay your bills, falling on hard times, struggling to pay insurmountable debt, whether it's rent payments, medical bills, co-pays. It's stigmatized in this country. And it's something people are embarrassed to talk about, ashamed to talk about. And our organization is trying to change that conversation and move the needle. Our goal, and it may take a little while, is analogous to when someone is injured or sick. They're not embarrassed to go to the doctor. You're not embarrassed to go to the emergency room if you need help. We would like to see this organization, the Massachusetts Debt Relief Foundation, grow nationally to be as common as the American Red Cross, so that someone struggling with debt issues, and when I say struggling, it's all relative. And we help the neediest of the needy file Chapter 7 bankruptcies. These are people that are on the brink of being evicted, or they're already homeless. They're sleeping on friends and family's couches. They're struggling to put food in their children's mouths, and they are ashamed and embarrassed to call a lawyer. So our staff reaches out to these folks, and we get referrals from Community Legal Aid, Volunteer Lawyers Project in Boston, and now we're starting to get these folks to help them and pull them up and give them a helping hand and get them back in the game. That's what it's all about. People want to be productive, they want to work, they want to support their family. And we help usually, obviously, head of households, moms and dads. And by helping the mom or the dad get out of the financial struggle, you help the whole family. You improve morale. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen, in my focus is on helping our clients understand it is going to get better. Because if they've been down and out for so long, the last person they want to talk to is a lawyer. And we know that. All of our staff are trained to be human beings. Not like if you go to a mechanic and you need a starter, they rip the starter out, put the new one in. We realize that the financial problem is usually only one of many problems they're dealing with. And by showing them we're non-judgmental, compassionate, kind, and we can help them with their legal problem, they open up to us and allow us to help them. So that's been the focus of our endeavor to grow this organization. And in terms of when people call, if they need help, most people do not need to file a bankruptcy. That may be surprising, but with just a little advice and adjustment in their finances, I'll give you an example. A lot of people, especially the elderly, they believe that if their spouse passes away, they have to pay all of the bills their spouse owed. Unless they're a co-signer, they don't have to pay. The sad cases are elderly people that call me in their 70s and 80s that just lost a spouse, and unscrupulous creditors call them and they say, call up, Mrs. Jones, I'm so sorry your husband died, but he owed $9,000 on the MasterCard. When can we get a payment? And when Mrs. Jones makes that payment, which is an unlawful debt collection practice, that's enough to send people spiraling into massive debt. The other situations that are so common, and you wouldn't recognize them if you saw them, because there's a lot of what we call the invisible poor. They go to work every day, and if you pass them on the street, everything looks great, but everything's not great because of their finances, because of the struggle to choose between paying the electric bill or put food on the table. I got a call one day that a person needed an in-home visit, went to the house. His situation was he came back from overseas serving our country. He was a veteran, and we have expanded benefits for U.S. veterans. And his wife had left him massive mailbox full of bills, credit cards that his wife, who divorced him, maxed them out. And then he had nothing, and he was starting over. And the reason I had to go to his house is because he was in a wheelchair with half of a leg cut off. So these are the folks that need the help, and I hope no one ever does. But the truth is, we live in a world where not everybody is okay. And our mission is to help these people realize they can get past the debt and move forward. And in cases where people cannot resolve their debt with just calling up creditors and extending the payments or working out a payment plan, we file absolutely free of charge Chapter 7 bankruptcies to get people out of debt in about 3.5 to 4 months. A Chapter 7 bankruptcy, thank you. It's similar to ripping the Band-Aid off. We file their case in court. They go on one meeting of creditors, and usually these folks have no assets. It's a means-tested benefit. Their income cannot exceed 150% of the poverty guidelines. They can't own real estate. And these are the folks that have struggled for years to make minimum payments. When you take away someone's shackles that have burdened them for some people 10 and 15 years of paying minimum payments, and they're $20,000 or $30,000 in debt or more, and you take that away from them, that's like watching a new bird come out and fly. The joy that infects these individuals is contagious, and that's what I'm trying to spread as a volunteer lawyer for this organization. And the folks that do find themselves in this debt, they're not using credit cards irresponsibly. And debt and bills are stigmatized in this country, and I know so is bankruptcy. Many people think, well, if you file bankruptcy, you're irresponsible, you're running up charge cards, and that's not the case at all. The people that have fallen on hard times are using those credit cards to get cash advances to pay rent because their spouse died. They have a disabled child, and they don't have enough money coming in the door. They have lost a job through a reduction in force. And that's something that you all as union members understand the benefit of sound and stable employment and solid wages. Not everyone has those benefits. And those are the folks that we help that have fallen on hard times through no fault of their own. And we are a helping hand that can bring them back and get them back on the right track. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to entertain them. And I can't thank you enough for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you, President.
Folks, this is an absolute example of partnerships that we're attempting to create on behalf of our membership. We're always looking to enhance our membership benefits and the services that Richard gives to our membership and supplies us with is you can't put it's invaluable. And Richard, I thank you for all the services that you provide. Folks, at this time, if we can honor our staff, all of our staff members, if you can absolutely raise your hand. Raise your hand. How many staff members do we have here today? Put them up. I thank you for everything that you do on behalf of our local. You are, we always and constantly end all of our all-staff meetings with, there is no me and I, there's only we and us. And we're trying to create, a team atmosphere. And I think we're doing that. And it's paying off in dividends because you can see it in the contracts that we're negotiating. At this time, I'd like for our e-board to stand and be recognized. All of our e-board members. This is your governing body. These are the folks that make decisions and hold our staff and the union accountable. And I thank you for all the good work that you have done. If you haven't participated in the vote thus far, please, if you can participate in the vote, if you can, if there's anyone that hasn't voted, if we can please participate in the vote. We're looking to lift the cap again, and from 16 to $19, and we're looking to double your chapter funds. It's necessary on behalf of the local. So if you haven't participated, if you can just go outside and see John Magner, he has the ballot box. If you can please vote in that process. I think we have. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and if you haven't voted, if you could please go and vote, and we're being mindful of everyone's schedule today. I know it's a Saturday. We'll try to get you out of here as quick as possible, but thank you very much. Folks, we have an IU representative over here today, Norma Gutierrez. You can stop by and say hello to her. She's our representative from Washington, D.C., and she certainly gives us a lot of guidance and support. Thank you, Norma.
Hello, Local 888. I am so sorry not to be able to be with you in person today, but I am grateful to have this chance to visit with you all virtually. When unions are strong, Massachusetts is strong, and I'm proud to fight for you every day in the United States Senate. SEIU 888 represents the municipal, state, and early education and higher education workers who are critical to keeping our communities and our Commonwealth running. You support people in their times of greatest need. You ensure that our young people are able to learn and grow, and you take care of members of our community. During the pandemic, you stood up for some of our most vulnerable when you called out conditions in our veterans' nursing homes, and you helped bring justice and better care for those you serve. This November, there's a lot on the line.
Hola, mi nombre es Pedro Ayala, pertenezco a la Unión 888, trabajo para la ciudad de Loren en los parking attendant, soy parking attendant, y una de las cosas que nosotros motivamos a nuestros miembros a participar en nuestra unión, porque eso nos da poder, eso nos ayuda a tomar liderazgo dentro de nuestro sindicato. A nivel personal, me siento bien porque he participado, me siento satisfecho con el trabajo que hemos hecho, porque he participado en varias campañas a nivel presidencial, a nivel del Senado, a nivel municipal, y estamos trabajando con nuestra unión desde el 2010 hasta el día de hoy. También en el 2016 formamos nuestra unión de los parking attendants, y para mí eso ha sido un logro. ¿Por qué? Porque hasta ahora nuestra voz se está escuchando. Estamos obteniendo mejores beneficios y estamos involucrando a los miembros, que eso es lo importante.
To the vote.
Well, did anybody here not vote on the resolution? I'm going to open the ballot and count them up. If you didn't vote, it's too late. The combination, if anybody can guess the combination. 1, 2, 3. You get another set of rare. You can get a free union t-shirt.
John, Lana Gill is going to help the tally.
All right. All right, I'm going to open it up here.
Drum roll.
Sir, we tell.
Folks, we're happy to report it's a union resolution passes. Thank you all for participating in the democratic process. And this is fantastic news. And now we can continue to building our local bigger, better, and stronger. Thank you. Thank you all.
Hello, Local 888. I am so sorry not to be able to be with you in person today, but I am grateful to have this chance to visit with you all virtually. When unions are strong, Massachusetts is strong, and I'm proud to fight for you every day in the United States Senate. SEIU 888 represents the municipal state. Hello, Local 888. I am so sorry not to be able to be with you in person today, but I am grateful to have this chance to visit with you all virtually. When unions are
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Wilson. I'm currently a construction compliance monitor for the Boston Residence Job Policy Office from the City of Boston. This is my second time working for the NPO program. I actually had the pleasure of doing it a few years back. A friend of mine was actually an endorsed candidate by the union, so it gave me the opportunity to go out and actually have boots on the ground and helping a personal friend while being integrated in local politics, so definitely a win-win. Having worked to various elected officials, I certainly know the importance of having boots on the ground. There are power in numbers and organizing, so I'm certainly appreciative of the work that my union is doing and having this program available for members to be civically engaged. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Local 888. I am so sorry. Hello, Local 888.